Hey, this is Gwen Morris, 93706, in the zone, and we're here today with Dr. Fitzalbert Marius. You know, that's our resident in charge here that stays with us. We also have Mr. Danny Golden. Danny was a commentator, announcer, Channel 30.
Before you were born.
And he is joking, but actually I was a kid at the time, and so we're bringing him back as one of the old icons of West Fresno as well. See, now he's going to want to clean that up. We're also here with Dr. James E. Aldredge from the James E. Aldredge Foundation. Hey, shout out for our sponsor, In the Zone, and he has a book out. Our book, no, it doesn't say our book because it has a lot of community folks in it, is a baseball career that ended in a split second. Now, we'll talk about that in just a minute, but if you kind of tuned in into the beginning of this conversation, you also heard Danny and Dr. J, or Dr. A, whichever we're going to do it today, talk about golf. And they wanted to talk about golf as opposed to talking about the book. So we're going to combine the two. And you guys, the question is there a golf course in 93706 zone? If there is, please, 412-7118, tell us where that is. In the meantime.
First of all, we do want to talk about the book. But golf is inherent in both of our histories. Jim was an excellent golfer. I'm a decent golfer.
He's an excellent golfer.
And Dr. Marius is also an excellent golfer.
All right.
But in terms of 93706, there is a failed golf course in time zone, and it should be discussed.
At another time.
At another time.
At another time. Right now, we're talking about in a split second. And in a split second, I don't understand what that really has to do with baseball. But I'm sure, Daddy,
Baseball is a very fast sport. One of the reasons, and I'm going to get back to golf, I got to refer back to that. One of the reasons Jim is such an excellent golfer is because of his ability to hit a fastball coming at him. Think about this. Baseball coming at you 85, 95, 100 miles an hour, you've got to have a great eye just to make connection with the ball. Not only that, be able to hit it with some authority. Golf ball ain't going nowhere.
Was that great eye a pun, or is that leading into the book?
No.
Where we
No,
There was no pun intended. No pun intended. And just you bringing this whole thing around, Gwen. We're on the golf course again. We're gonna get to the book, right?
Yeah, that's right.
We're gonna get to the book.
You can get to the book today, or you can get to the book tomorrow.
Let me
but
try
we're going to
this.
discuss this book, right?
Okay,
It
talks about some things relating to golf in there, or there was an inference of golf in terms of hand-eye coordination. But I think the community not only would be interested in the book, and but also really the status of the golf course that was supposed to come to West Fresno. And Gwen, if you would allow us, we'll talk about it. You know why?
I'm not going to allow you to talk about the golf course today,
No, Jack.
because we're talking about in a split second.
Okay, then I'll talk about that, and then
You know,
the community needs to know about Jack Nicholas, who came to try to design
No,
it,
they really don't need to know about
and
that
it's
right this
now
minute.
going to become an orchard.
Now, but I want to talk about 93706 in the zone.
Okay.
And one of our themes for the rest of this year as well as next year is reading by third grade.
Okay.
And so one of the things that we want to highlight, particularly those in this valley who've written books, and since Dr. James E. Aldredge, is also one of our great sponsors here at the Cecil C. Hinton Multicultural Community Center, 2385 South Fairview.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
I want to get this out. We want to highlight for the rest of this year, for those who have not had an opportunity to read this book, it's important. It happened right here in our community to a young man, and we're going to talk about it in the rest of the story. Jim, before we start asking you questions, is there anything that you want to say in your defense?
Yeah. On my behalf. No, I do think the point that you make is the fact that, here at the center we have a charter school, and there's a couple of other charter schools in the area, plus the regular unified school districts of Washington Union and Edison High School. And they, have K through 12, but then, you know, we often forget about the third grade, and you got to be able to read by the third grade, and that's really important. This book is not written for third graders, but it's written for middle schoolers.
Okay.
And I think there's going to be a little test as to whether, you know, students who do read it, because it relates not only to a person playing baseball, and in a split second, the career is over because of sliding into second base. Hits you in the eye.
But not sliding in.
Or or not sliding properly. Not sliding properly. You get hit in the eye, the eyeball bursts like a grape, and you find that it's really all over. But I think the key to this book relates back to what you said, is when that happened, I, as well as I hope others, have an alternative of education. Now, the injury and the professional baseball can take that away from you. Happens all the time. But the heart of this book says, try again, but you better have something in your brain by way of education. And it's interesting that in the United States, education is a right that is often abused. Other countries, it's a privilege.
Okay.
And we have, you know, as Don King says, only in America, we have this opportunity to get something, you know, in your brain. And taking advantage of high school education for preparation to higher ed, like college, or a career that stops at the 12th grade, you know, but you gotta know how to read, write, and do math in order to be fairly successful. Because if you don't go to school and if you become a dropout, I'm sorry, you are in worse shape than ever in our society.
So your reason for writing the book
is exactly that. Not to have folks join a pity party of, ain't it awful, I got my eye hurt. No, it is in there to say, I'm from West Fresno, worked really hard, and I went and got an education.
And I think that's critical, particularly in light of the fact that we're in an environment, primarily Fresno, which is, in my opinion, somewhat closed, particularly in terms of people of color. To see a person such as yourself to have had that opportunity to reach a status on professional baseball level, but because of your injury, succumb to that and to become more than that. In fact, it's almost kind of like I don't want to say it negatively, but like a blessing.
Yeah.
I was thinking that.
You see what I'm saying? A blessing, the fact that somehow God stepped in and said, okay, I got a future for this guy. Right now he thinks it's baseball, but let me pop his eye out and then see what happens. You understand what I'm saying?
That's right.
And I think, and the fact that people on the local level, on the closed level like this, can relate to that. In New York, San Francisco, Chicago, this might get lost in the wayside.
Yeah.
You know, but in an environment like Fresno, where it's kind of like everybody knows everybody else, you can relate to that. And those of us who don't know you personally do understand at the same time where you came from, what happened to you, and how you were able to transcend that particular tragedy in your life and become something more than just a professional baseball player.
Yeah.
I think that's very...
And the other choice, and I think it's mentioned in the book, and I don't like to do the personal pronoun too much, it mentions the choice made when you're in the hospital and they tell you your eye won't have any vision. And with that, much like when you're a golfer, you gotta have some depth perception. You gotta have depth perception, and that was lost.
Yes.
And so the deal is to make the choice of come back, develop, and invite folks to a pity party. And folks, I know what the language is, I can say it correctly, but in the vernacular to say, ain't it awful, you know, and talk about how it should have been, and I guess one could go and drink to drown their sorrow.
Okay.
I guess one could go and puff on a cigarette to feel better.
Okay.
Those were not alternatives. I could have done that. Folks now have that option of whether they want to do it, but that's not the best option. So all I did was just went back, put on my shades. People thought I was cool, and went back and spent a lot of time in school, you know, verifying the fact that 2 and 2 is 4, and 4 and 4 is, you know, 8, and that kind of thing.
It is 8.
It is 8.
He studied a little bit on that.
Yeah, I studied on that.
Yeah, 4 and 4, okay.
That's right.
He's a doctor,
That's
but
right.
okay, all right.
Well, you know, kind of this.
But
this
it's about education, you know, because too many kids, and I see them around here, where, you know, they think they're going to be like LeBron James, and they see Kobe Bryant out of high school and all that, and they put all their eggs in that basket, and it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's a recruiting in a sport. You know, I'm going to go Division 1A, I'm going to play for UCLA and all that. That doesn't happen, and they are disheartened, and they don't want to try anymore. Plus, they haven't gotten a foundation in elementary school or in middle school to even attempt to go to a career or a higher level of education.
Well, Jim, I would like to jump in on that one, because I think in terms of the formation of your character, it plays a lot into that. Because, you know, we always discuss the fact that there are single-parent homes.
Okay.
To me, that's never really an excuse.
Gotcha.
To me, it's not really
I would
an
agree with
excuse.
that. I agree with that.
So the fact that you had, your mother was a very positive driving force. So those things have to come into play when you decide that, you know, this is what I'm going to do. So that your content of your character, to me, is a very strong attribute to possess.
You know, I want to take the conversation just back a little bit along what you said, Danny, because I probably have not said this, so this is a fun thing to say things nice about Dr. Aldredge, because we so often, excuse me, I so often don't, that this is an opportunity.
Yeah, because we work together, and yeah, so I'd like to hear something.
Yeah, so something that's
Me too.
you write the book.
Yeah.
Something that's a little different, because when we're reading the book, because we are local, and like you know, I grew up knowing Dr. Aldredge, you know, Jim back in the day when he coached over at the various playgrounds. And we were smaller because, you know, he's a little older than we were, so we used to do some really wonderful things to him. But at the time we were growing up, we meaning, you know, let's say early 60s and below that, you know, we'll start there. We had a lot of good role models. And Jim, when you were growing up, and what was interesting to me about the book is how he perceived himself, how you perceived yourself in the book, as growing up, you know, and having to struggle and all the handicaps. And all we saw was this wonderful young man who would come over to the school and coach us, you know, parks and recreation.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes he tried to be a disciplinary, and we did things behind his back and ran, and so, you know.
As typical kids.
As typical kids would do. And so.
They don't let you off the hook, though.
That's right. No, but when he left, you know, when you leave, there's a community void. There really was a community void in terms of some of the leadership. So not when you came back with an issue, you know, and I want to know, does that I give you a handicap for golf? But we'll talk about that later when we. But
that's a good segue.
Yeah, I thought you guys would like that. But there was a community void. And the fact that you came back and you went back to school and you became our city manager twice, I believe.
Yeah.
You know, city manager twice.
Yeah.
The fact that the Save Mart Center holds your name on it as chair at that time. That really is an inspiration for those of us who came. You know, we talk about the struggle that we have, that you've done a great job.
Thank you very much.
Just I need to commend you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Not only that, but retiring and then coming back to 93706 in the zone to do some of the work that you're doing here at Cecil C. Hinton Center. Also, and I'll say this over the stream, that you also use your own money to do that. And so, you know, we're pretty happy to have you. We're pleased. We're very
I
pleased
think
about
they
that.
give back. I don't have a lot, but,
Education is
Yeah.
what you stressed.
yeah, absolutely.
Education, endurance, and giving back.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and we can talk about some of the other pieces in there, you know, I
Well,
don't.
one thing I read the book, it was really a very easy read. All the motivating factors in your life, what do you consider to be probably, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most?
Yeah.
What was the biggest motivating factor for you in terms of just going forward from that accident with your eye and moving ahead?
Still my mother.
Okay.
Yeah, still my mother.
Okay.
I was on my own at 17 and didn't feel I wanted to let her down, you know, because she was all fired up about, you know, son playing baseball, and she'd gotten out of her mess of a marriage. And I'll just tell this, it's not in the book, but she says, you know, I have, you know, a bad heart and I got some other stuff. I just, early on, she said, if I can live to 50, then I'd be okay. And she got past 50, and I said, Mom, you know, you really don't want to be around. And she says, oh yeah, I want to stick around. I want to stick around to see how well you're doing. So, and the other part of it, I think it's in the book, because there's a large manuscript to it, is I went to City College, Danny, with my mother. She went back to.
I remember that. Yeah.
I had gone off season and all that in baseball, and then we had enough money and extra time and all that for her to go back to school, and she didn't get a chance to go back to. She didn't get a chance to go to school and achieve anything academically. So she went back, and we were on the same campus in 1959.
See, that's amazing. A lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, and I was proud of her.
Yeah.
You know, I was proud of my mom being there.
But you know, speaking of 50, because we all grew up in different eras, right? You're a little bit before me.
Yeah, that's right.
But when I was young, 50 was old.
50
That's what I mean.
But when I hit 50, I'm in my stride. So
was old.
you understand what I'm saying, right? Because I thought 50 was, because when we would go out and we see an older couple, 50, 52,
Yeah.
that's a nice looking older couple. Now I'm that older couple.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, but
Not that old. Not that
not
old.
that old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the fact of that being this very strong motivating factor, and I didn't want to touch on the whole thing with your father, but I think that's very critical, that people understand that you have a base, no matter where it comes from, that gives you some kind of a strong foundation with which to move and propel yourself forward.
And in terms of a day-to-day kind of interaction in my house, and I'll admit it, that it was a single-family house.
Yeah.
It was single parent, I'm sorry, single parent household.
Yes.
You know, we wrote my father off early on, but single parent. That's why I agree with what you said, Dan, early on. You can talk about it, but you can't, you know, say all of my problems, that's right, you can't let it be a crutch. All my problems relate to, because I come from a single parent home.
Yeah.
That's no excuse.
Yeah, because you can remember, even as you raise your own children, their personalities are distinctly different, unless they're connected twin-wise with one
And
of
then they still have
to
different
Jeanette, they still have different personalities.
Yeah.
So that is, to me, has never really had a bearing. And I've known a number of people who've grown up with single parents who've become very, very, very successful, including you. But I've also known some who've grown up in both parents at the home turned out to be junk.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's all the way you put your head in your heart.
Yeah, I would agree.